something interesting happened last week. For several days, the news cycle was dominated by newly released Epstein documents. Documents that, according to multiple outlets, contained FBI investigation files, including allegations against Donald Trump. Then, on Saturday, the United States launched military strikes against Iran. And just like that, the Epstein story vanished from every front page. Coincidence? Maybe. But let's walk through what we actually know and let you decide. Hey, welcome back to World Powers Fusion. Let's begin right away with what we know about the Epstein files here. When the latest batch of the Epstein documents dropped some days ago, investigators and journalists began piecing together some significant details. Among the released material were subpoenaed iMessages from Jeffrey Epstein himself. In those messages, Epstein, writing to unnamed contacts in 2018, described Trump in stark terms, saying, quote, "He is psychotic and would not blink twice at encouraging an attack on us so he can leap to the country's defense." He also wrote, "If I go down, I'm taking everyone with me." Now, Epstein and Trump were publicly known associates for years. There are photos, party appearances, and documented interactions confirming this. So messages from Epstein commenting on Trump's psychology, especially ones suggesting Trump might manufacture a crisis to protect himself, were always going to generate serious attention. On top of that, a separate piece of reporting emerged suggesting that the Department of Justice had quietly removed a photo showing Trump's cabinet member, Ward Lutnick, on Epstein's island. The photo was only restored after public pressure. Lutnick had previously claimed a very limited, uncomfortable encounter with Epstein in 2005, but records suggest he visited the island in 2012 with his family, a significant contradiction. This was the news on the headlines. Heading into last weekend, the Epstein story had momentum. It had documentation. It had named figures in the current administration. Then came the strikes. On Saturday, February 28, 2026, the United States launched what is described as a major military operation, codenamed Operation Epic Fury, against Iran. Iran responded with retaliatory strikes targeting U.S. allies in the region, including Dubai, Doha, Amman, and Lebanon. The supreme leader of Iran was killed. 3 American service members died. Within hours, Iran dominated every headline. The Epstein story did not appear on the front page of the New York Times the next morning. Iran did. Now here's where it gets complicated, because multiple things can be true at the same time. Iran's nuclear program is a genuine long-term concern. The Ayatollah's government had a documented record of brutality toward its own citizens. There are legitimate arguments about regional security and the threat Iran poses to American allies. But there are also serious constitutional and strategic questions about how this operation was handled. The U.S. Constitution gives Congress, not the President, the power to declare war. The existing authorization for use of military force, which presidents have historically leaned on for military action, was designed for defensive purposes. Iran does not have intercontinental ballistic missiles. It does not, according to intelligence assessments up to and including statements from Trump's own officials, possess nuclear weapons, so the legal basis here is contested, and that's not a partisan point. It's a structural one. There's also a strategic issue. Less than 24 hours before the strikes began, Iranian negotiators in Geneva reportedly offered a deal, one that would have severely limited uranium enrichment and opened Iran's energy sector to American companies. By some accounts, it was a more favorable agreement than the 2015 Obama-era nuclear deal. Trump could have taken that deal and claimed a major diplomatic victory. He chose not to. What message does that send? If you're a foreign government watching this unfold, the lesson is straightforward. Negotiating with the United States carries no guarantee. You can offer concessions and still get bombed. There's also the question of what comes next, and here, history offers a sobering record: regime change. As a foreign policy tool has a complicated track record: Haiti, Afghanistan, Iraq. In each case, the removal of a government did not produce the stable democratic outcome that was promised. And Iran is a theocratic state with what analysts describe as an absolute monopoly on internal violence. There are no armed opposition militias positioned to step in. The military has been aligned with the government for nearly 5 decades. When Trump told ABC's Jonathan Karl that the strikes were so successful they eliminated most of the candidates who would have replaced the supreme leader, that's not necessarily reassuring. It may mean the next leader is someone entirely unknown, potentially less predictable, potentially more extreme. As one analyst put it, the devil you don't know may be worse than the devil you did know. There's also a resource question. Every Tomahawk missile fired is one fewer available for future contingencies. Defense reporting indicates that inside the Pentagon, there is genuine anxiety about air defense stockpiles being depleted if this conflict extends beyond a few days. It reportedly takes 2 or 3 interceptors to reliably stop a single incoming missile. The math gets uncomfortable quickly. Back to the core question: is the timing a distraction? Trump has a documented history of shifting public attention during difficult news cycles. That's not an accusation. It's an observable pattern that supporters and critics alike have noted across both of his terms. The Epstein files represent perhaps the most politically dangerous story of his presidency. Not because guilt has been established, it hasn't, but because the documentation is detailed, the names are real, and the story was building. Some Trump allies have pointed out that he ran explicitly as the peace candidate. In 2016, 2020, and 2024, he consistently argued that his opponents would drag the country into war with Iran. He called himself the peace president. The contrast between that rhetoric and what happened Saturday is significant, and it's creating visible tension even within his own base. The response from some Trump supporters online has ranged from wholehearted defense to quiet silence to outright criticism. Commentators who had loudly proclaimed there would be no war under Trump have either reversed course or gone dark. That fracture matters. What we're left with is a situation full of unanswered questions. Why were the Iran strikes launched within days of the Epstein documents gaining serious traction? Why was a seemingly favorable diplomatic deal rejected hours before military action began? Why are senior Pentagon officials, according to reporting, describing the internal mood as intense and paranoid, with concerns the conflict could spiral out of control? And why does the administration appear, based on Trump's own calls to journalists, to not have a clear or consistent end goal for the operation? The president has reportedly described different timelines and objectives to different reporters: regime change, a quick 2 to 3 day resolution, a 4 to 5 week campaign. These aren't compatible visions. They suggest either strategic ambiguity or genuine uncertainty. But here's what's objectively true at this moment. 3 Americans died during the strikes. Hundreds of Iranians are dead. The region is destabilized. Diplomatic progress that was reportedly within reach has been abandoned. Air defense stockpiles are being drawn down faster than they can be replenished. And the Epstein story, with its documented connections to members of the current administration, has been almost entirely displaced from public conversation. Whether the timing is a deliberate distraction, a tragic coincidence, or the result of chaotic decision-making at the top levels of government, the outcome is the same. A war started. A domestic scandal paused. And a lot of people who deserve answers on both fronts are still waiting for them. That's the situation as it stands. Make of it what you will. If you want to stay updated as this case develops, make sure you're subscribed to this channel. We'll keep covering this as new information comes in.